Including
Good.
share screen. Repeat.
So what do we share first?
Click. You're right.
One at the bottom.
You got two of them. Yeah. It doesn't matter which one we do.
You know what, that's where we would start with. And then we'll do it.
Yeah.
You can look at it if you want.
Buried in behind this thing. Okay, welcome everybody. Today is September 30th. It's the last day of September, I guess. And this is the Westchester Borough Planning Commission. This is a voting session. Today we have Quinty Burrell, Steve Mitten, Thomas Doherty, Matt Clapp, and I'm Jim Cherry. We have Aaron Fluke and Tom Estee as well. Are there any comments from citizens that are items not on the agenda? I'm looking at you guys. So, okay. Very good. All right. Reports, Aaron.
Yes, there's been a change to the zoning hearing board appeals for October. We have 1032, 1032, item 1032, 436 North Church Street, which is a subdivision with a building on the lot, and they're going to have questions. That's continued. They're going to have questions on the side and rear yard setbacks and on the size of the lot that's going to be created from the subdivision. It's a little bit under what is required. That was a continuance from last month. Then we have item 1035 to 740 South Matlack Street. This is an issue where there is a requirement for any place that has 3 or more parking spots for townhouses or 4 or more townhouses that abut an alley, they have to have a curb. And they do not want to install the curb, and Public Works does not want to have the curb installed because of the restriction of the size of the alley. Unfortunately, that hasn't gone through yet as the amendment in the agenda or in the zoning. So they have to go through the zoning board and get a relief in that regard. 1036, item 1036 is 124 East Church Street. This is a newer one. It's a side yard setback. They want to demolish a garage and put a 2-story building with an office or ADU above a garage. This,
I'm sorry, clarification on the address, North Church Street?
I think it said
no,
124.
it must be north. It was written down as east, but it might have been just a,
It's north.
typo. It would be north. Sorry, thank you for catching that. 124 North Church. That was a typo. Demolition of a garage. They're gonna put a two-car garage back in with a level above. They're having an issue with because of putting in 2 cars, it's gonna expand the size of the garage and will be exactly on the property line. So it's within the side setback and also with the rear setback for the accessory units. Those are the 3 things that are currently on. There is one other one that has submitted an application, but it has not paid or finalized the submission. So they have another weekend. If they don't, they won't go on.
Okay, very good.
I believe that we did attach the applications to this. That's for you guys. We have to provide all of you with a copy of
I'd
the.
love to see the curb one, because I think that's such a critical thing, that they're having to get that addressed there. Would be great to, see in detail, like what does Public Works not like about that? Where do we normally have in our alleys? And then what the requirement was.
There actually was a report that I did for Smart Growth that I can provide for you guys. if
Oh,
you
that'd be
like.
great. I'd love to see that.
It shows where and how those are supposed to be installed. And the main question here is that on the smaller alleys that are between 16 to 18 feet wide, it makes it difficult for people to see when there's heavy snow. And they can end up damaging the snowplows and some of their equipment and, front end alignment and so forth on their vehicles. The other thing is that it can inhibit a little bit, some accessibility for firefighters and emergency services.
So, and where exactly would the curb go? Like,
It's to divide the parking space and the alleyway. And the
it
idea.
would be
is-
interesting to see, where that is used in the borough, because I would guess, having walked so many of our alleys, that it's less than 5% of our alleys have curbs. And so it'd be interesting to know, when that got added on, and then maybe if that shouldn't have to go to zoning hearing board, maybe that's something that
Well,
should be taken.
currently there is an amendment to allow for the zoning officer to waive that
Okay,
if recommended by either Public Works, police, or fire or emergency services for
Hmm.
for specific reasons.
yeah.
But that has not gone through completely. That will be coming to you guys for
I
review.
just think of like all the alleys in my neighborhood. I'm in the kind of northwest section. I don't know that there's one that I could point to. I think some of the newer, larger developments have added like kind of ad hoc, like a little bit of curb, but in general, there's almost no curbing.
At this point, when I went out, I found 8 alleys,
Okay.
at least 8,
In the town center or where?
all over.
Yeah.
And this is something that's.
Don't see it much.
Yeah, that's, and it is a requirement. I believe it's, 112-602-O through P.
Because it came up actually a number of times in the conversations with that applicant when we were looking at that turning radius. The fire marshal wanted to have a much larger turning radius. We were pointing out that that's really not in keeping with the fabric of the borough. And that if we had these multiple curbs, or, in our understanding, there wasn't gonna be a curb at all because they hadn't drawn one in, that it wasn't gonna be a problem. If we start to have these larger curbs, I do think that we should look at that carefully. Is that really is that going to promote, people walking down the center of these alleys as they do now? Or is that really going to kind of buffer that as like, hey, that's where the cars go, and then people are on the side.
Keep in mind, this is only in sections where you have a parking lot that needs to be separated from the alleyway. And the main reason for it, why it was originally brought in, was so that people weren't backing out onto alleyways. Because you have many people that drive down those alleyways, sometimes
Yeah,
at a good rate of speed, sometimes not so,
Right,
so a good rate of speed. So the prevailing logic at the time that they made it was to prevent people from backing straight out. And backing up and then turning and going out the front way so that it was safer. So it still is a part that is part of our zoning that's required, but this gives us a situation, where we have some alleyways that are much larger. They might 25 feet, 18, 25 feet. Then there's other ones. There's one that I can't remember.
Yeah, not many of them.
There is one, and I can't remember exactly where it is. I took pictures of it. It's actually at 27 feet wide and at one end. And when you get to the other end, it's now down to 16 feet.
Yeah,
And that's where the ones up here had curbs. And the one down at the far end had curb in it, and you can see where it really does impact the ability to drive in that area. And I can get the actual street that was. You guys can go out and look at it if you want, but I'm too new to remember what the name of the street was.
And I'm sorry, I'm confused. So do they mean on the west side of Mechanics Alley for the curb, where the parking lot is, where
I-
the black mechanic is? Do they mean that?
It's this one over here.
It's that one over there. See, this part here.
This is 704. This
Yeah.
is the,
This part
Seven
here, except for where the entrance and exit is, they're supposed to have a curve that separates the alley from.
So is there a curb on the other side, on the west side?
no.
No.
Well,
And that's what I,
there was one that was done down in that area that was done previously. And
This-
the original
this-
drawings did have a curb, but they
Yeah.
were not put in.
And it makes, I mean, like the Saldo has requirements that it's not a curb, but it's like, it's different landscaping features, like large rocks and stuff like that for like the edging. So the Saldo has a couple pages where it talks about the edging of the alley.
Well, the zoning actually calls for a
But a
6-inch curb
yeah.
or as otherwise designed in the Saldo.
Hmm.
So they do leave it that where you can pull things out of the Saldo as a substitution for it.
Okay,
But
that's interesting.
this will go, because unfortunately, we couldn't get it done fast enough for them, so we gave them 3 options. They could wait to have us get through the ordinance revision. They could go ahead and put the curb in, or they could go to zoning hearing board. They had chosen, because they want to get the time. They're more concerned about the time. They wanted to go to the zoning hearing board in regards to it.
Hmm.
And at this point, I don't think that we haven't asked whether or not, the borough wants to send a solicitor to find it.
Yep.
That will be at the SmartGov meeting this month.
When you were saying revising the ordinance, what are you talking about? Is that
It's an
actually?
amendment to the ordinance that will institute a little bit of phrasing that will allow us to allow the zoning officer, while reviewing these, to waive the requirement if there is a compelling case.
I'm just wondering, Thomas, if we should put that on the agenda for the work session next month and look at just the whole idea of that, especially if we have
It would definitely be valuable to see whatever you wrote up for smart growth, to like see a real live scenario of it, yeah.
especially with the ADUs, and then,
That is
There's-
going to be on your next agenda anyhow. You don't
Okay.
Get a choice on that one. It needs to
Well,
be reviewed.
why,
Your recommendation.
I believe there is a parking spot required for the ADU.
Yeah, it's 1 or 2, yeah.
1 or 2.
I don't know off top.
It's-
This only requires if you have 3 or more.
Gotcha.
So it's not going to be for an ADU situation where you would normally only have 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the rest of the balance of the alley here.
But this is the main reason why is because it is a smaller restricted alley and you have so much parking on it. And this would be a circumstance where you would have that
So very
requirement.
area. Mhm.
The ideally it would be best if they backed into the parking spots, but not everybody is.
Well, they're also stacked here. Looks like they have 8, ability to have 8 spots.
Yes, and you can see how restricted that alley is. But there are some other alleys that are much larger that may not have where that may not be necessary, where you can have it and it not be restricted. But you can see someone trying to drive a larger snowplow through, not being able to find exactly where that 6-inch curb is,
Yeah.
catching it and doing a lot of damage. So that's what the point of the alteration to our amendment to our zoning, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get that done in time for them to move forward with theirs.
I'm sure whoever would be doing the lot to the west, probably a private contractor doing that. For that curve as well.
Well, they may do the parking lot, but we have to maintain the.
Well, that's what I mean, but in doing that parking lot, they would hit the curb.
Yeah. This side does have.
And those are the 3 that we currently have on for this month.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Thomas, do you have anything, to report from Harb?
No, I talked with Carol, and she said there's really nothing of note that the HARP is dealing with right now. For the planning commission, she had questions regarding, I didn't have answers, but this new role of town architect and, it was kind of more of a general conversation. And so my note to us is simply that, the prospective town architect is still, wondering, what's that scope of that work? And so just putting that on our radar that,
Okay.
I guess that still needs to be defined, not that we play any role in that, but just,
Okay.
but yeah, nothing really from her.
Just one note. I did meet with Ms. Quigley,
Carol, yeah,
Carol. There are some changes she would like to see to the sign ordinance in the historic district. Specifically, the requirement for metal or pressure treated wood as the pole for a pillar sign. She would like to have the ability for HARB to allow for substitutions in the historic district per HARB recommendation. She wants some language in there that would allow that.
And I think she mentioned that, but I think she was saying that really that's you're working with her on it. It's not really a planning commission thing, right?
It's still going to be an amendment to the, correct me if I'm wrong, still an amendment to the
Zoning.
ordinance, so it'd have to come back here for your recommendation. But
Gotcha. Carol,
I don't
knows
know
what
when
you're
that-
doing.
I don't know when that will be available.
Okay. Old business, approval of August meeting minutes. Did we have a chance to review any comments? Would we approve those?
Second.
Good, good.
Was unfortunately not here.
Okay.
All right.
Got four. Four yeses. Okay, open issues. First on the issues, Tom, is the Unified Residential Development. It's the ordinance proposed for a new use within the town center. After a review and comments at last week's work session, those comments have been incorporated. I believe this shows the markup, yes, okay. So Tom, you want to lead us into this, or you want to?
Sure. You discussed it last week, and as a result, Matthew sent me a list of the comments you made, and I made the revisions to the ordinance in accordance with those comments, which I think was posted on the website. The only thing that wasn't posted is I got an email from Jim suggesting that for subsection B14, where it says uncovered stoops and steps may project the maximum, it did say 5 feet, but I changed that to 4 feet. It's not on that one that you're looking at. I have a copy for everyone that you want to see.
Okay.
Anyway, so now it says 4 feet into the right of way of dedicated street. And then at Jim's suggestion, I added, provided, however, in no case shall the width of the sidewalk be less than 4 feet to maintain an accessible route for pedestrians.
Mhm.
So that's the only addition since last week.
So I have a copy that's not marked up, but it's the lowest paragraph right here, number 14.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Uncovered stoops and steps may project a maximum of 4 feet into the right of way of a dedicated street. Provided, however, in no case shall the width of the sidewalk be less than 4 feet to maintain an accessible route for pedestrians. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was.
If I could just ask a clarifying question, maybe this is really for you, Aaron, and it's really more for for anybody here. You know, even without that language in there, a development would not be able to impede and make a sidewalk non-accessible. Is that correct?
Correct, there are other, section 95-24 creates that it's illegal to create an obstruction that would restrict the medium space at the middle of the walkway to be less than 36 inches.
Perfect.
I do like the fact that we're going to 4, because if someone were to have a stoop there, then they want to put a planter or something.
Yeah.
Not that would, at least it's making sure that we have some grace.
Yeah.
Space on either side.
Right.
For that.
I think it's just a good thing for us to remember. It's really great to see that added language in the zoning to clarify. But, you know, zoning is only covering so much, and then we have all these other ordinances. And then after something gets built, you've got a noise ordinance, you've got a trash ordinance, you have all these different ordinances to really cover and make it, you know, as wonderful a place as it can be. And so zoning only, not everything has to go in there, like, because you could come up with any number of different scenarios, like, oh no, what if this is going to happen? But thankfully, Aaron you're doing zoning right now, but that's only one of your many things that you do.
Well, part of zoning is you do also call in other parts of the ordinances too.
Yeah.
So, when we would go out for a site visit, if we saw anything that would restrict that below 36 inches towards the middle. Of the
Right.
road,
And I
call that
I
out.
often think of like building codes as well, they think like, oh no, it's going to be too close. And well, you're not going to get a permit for your building if it's, has an opening within X many feet of us. It's just good for us all to remember that zoning is only doing so much of the work.
But I do like to have this language in there because it just makes it easier.
100%.
And then the other major change was that I took out what was old section 5, which is the changes to the town center dimensional requirements. That's now in a separate ordinance.
Right. And we had, last month or 2 months ago, sent a letter to Borough Council for both the Bill 2 as well as the rec space. It was an image that was supposed to be removed. So I'm assuming that had been moved up the chain and then approved or to move forward. So
So you made a recommendation.
we had made a recommendation separate and prior to this ordinance being proposed that the town center dimensional requirements were changed and specific to previously the build to line reverting back to a 0-foot setback, as well as that side yard setback. So the 3 changes on that table were under a separate
Okay.
set of
That's
conversation.
already been done.
That's already been done and moved forward. So that's really what we've been calling the build to line.
Right.
So,
And I don't know, I don't recall where it is in the process, whether that one already.
It went marked up already. It was moved up to council and council so that it was okay. I believe it's okay for us to go to get it.
Okay, so I'll send it to the county for
Yeah,
247 review and advertise.
right, and that's this section right here.
Correct.
Building setback line, front yard minimum 0 feet, side yard minimum 0 feet. I'm just gonna read the portions that have been modified. The building setback line, front yard minimum for building structures or parts thereof with a building height over 45 permitted and the HO 60 ratio 75 height option overlay districts shall be 10 feet. Move that 0, except as may be permitted in HO 60 or 75 height overlay districts is the maximum height. We're in agreement with all of that.
All right, thanks.
Yes.
semi-attached it's actually semi-detached and
Right,
semi-attached.
semi-detached.
Semi-detached would be basically the end unit of a townhouse where it shares only one party wall with another adjacent structure. Semi-attached or attached, actually, so, yeah, attached. Because it's semi-detached and attached. Attached has 2 party walls, so it's the middle townhouse.
Example, North Walnut Street, they have twins. What's the difference between that and a
Those are 2 semi-detached.
detached?
Detached, yeah, they're semi-detached. The definition, if you want me to pull it up, I can pull up the zoning for the definition, read it exactly. But overall, a semi-detached will share one party wall with an adjacent property. So 2 twins share one party wall, one in the middle between each other. So they're technically considered two semi-detached buildings.
Okay. But for example, a lot of twins are actually
Yes,
two separate.
that's still one party wall, but those are 2 fire walls. That one is, party wall is the division between the houses. Firewall is a building standard that requires you to have a certain burn through rating on that. And 2 brick walls together are still considered a party wall where they touch. But then you have a larger burn through rating or fire rating on those walls because now they're double.
Because I remember we struggled with that in the past. Because they were built 100 years ago with some criteria of fire deterrent. I don't think it's there, but nonetheless, maybe that's how we now talk about it.
It's a defining thing, and I can make sure that that's public. I think we did have that in the session, when we were talking about the ordinance with the definitions of semi-attached, semi-detached, attached. Home.
It's in the zoning too. I mean,
It's in the zoning right on the front. I think it's 112-202, which is definitions. And it has those in it.
So attached means both.
Yes. So if you had three in a row, you would have two semi-detached and then attached.
You want to explain?
If there's also single family and two family, so one family or two family, what that means is if you had the twins that you said before, but the first floor was one apartment and the second floor was another apartment on both sides, then those would be two-family semi-detached buildings.
So if you read in there, well, the reason
I
that,
know.
the reason that was important is there's two family, there's quadruplex, triplex, so there's multiple units potential. And the reason that's important to know is that's part of the proposed development on that property.
If this would be a twin, if this would be a twin, each one of these would be a semi-detached building. Okay, and if you had two floors where you had one family, one family, one family, one family, then you would have two-family semi-detached properties. Sometimes it's easier to see it than to listen to the definition. It's
Okay.
easier to say than the definition.
Okay, so I'm just gonna scroll through and see if we have any other markups here that were important. Track location, provide however track must be located. So this was where this was to be applied, which is, they're in the town center. And we added, it's had previously noted track location. Track must be adjacent to a lot or tract located in the NC2, NC3, or CS zoning districts. Provided, however, the tract must not be located in or adjacent to a lot or tract located in the retail overlay district as defined in section 112-405. So that the retail overlay district is excluded, and so it's not allowed here. I believe everything else was okay.
I mean, so I had a couple questions
Sure.
about it, the 1 acre to 3 acres. I see that a lot in suburban developments, suburban municipalities. Where's the relevance to Westchester? I partly have been choosing just like not engage with it because we're working on another ordinance that's similar. And so to some extent, maybe it's distracting if I add too many comments, but that is one I just want to at least throw out there. Why do we have a 1 acre minimum? Because I do think you're incentivizing, you're basically opening up the door to developers and capital that are quite large, and you're going to be excluding the smaller lots. And in some ways, I think you might be creating the unintended consequence of more demolition as people need to amass larger tracts of land to do a development like this. If you could get away with, if you could develop on a 1/4 acre, then no need to buy up and demolish the historic structure that is your neighbor.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of 1 to 3 acre parcels in the town center. And so
But
you're correct.
There are many that you could make.
Sure.
And I think that this is incentivizing a certain kind of development, which I think is really great, and I'm really grateful for this. But those jump out at me as being something that could easily have been copied from, not that they were by any means, but like our local townships, West Marlboro, West Bradford, like all these other townships have these 1 and 3. Those are very regular numbers or sizes of area. You see in Oklahoma City, I'm working in Oklahoma City, you see 1 and 3. What's the relevancy to Westchester and what are the unintended consequences? So it just makes me think that I wouldn't be surprised what we see and we might have to push back on is developers realizing, hey, it is hard to make an acre, but this makes it make sense. And I need to start actually, unfortunately, buying and demolishing some of these neighbors when I wish I could just do a half acre or a quarter acre. A quarter acre development in a town center can be a very large development. You know, I'm working on a project that's less than an acre in Oklahoma City. You know, it's a $20 million build out on less than an acre, you know, a half acre, a quarter acre, that's still a significant development. So it would just be something to keep in the back of our minds. And maybe we'll have to change it once something is
Well,
demolished.
I think it's, I think it's a fair enough because it's pretty precise for not necessarily knowing how. I mean, I do know
That's right.
where it could be applied, but it's hard to look forward and understand how somebody may or may not use that. So,
I could imagine having a maximum, right? I could imagine
Sure.
saying, going in there and saying, actually, we're gonna have half acre maximums.
right,
In some sense, to kind of keep it incremental and slow it down so that you're not incentivizing a larger development. Because I think in a lot of ways, Westchester was built on smaller incremental steps, and that might be a
Sure.
better way forward.
yeah, I think I think that might be a little too small for this application, but I think.
Well, it could be two different development. I mean, yeah, maybe that's not right there, but I can rationalize that.
Sure.
This one, I wonder, where does this come up with? And I just see these 1 and 3 over and over in zoning codes.
If I may, it did not come from any other. This was developed by backing into or out of the sketch plan
Sure.
that Pete submitted. So that tract is what 1.2 acres. So that's where the acre comes from.
Sure.
So if you so you made minimum half acre, that would work for him.
Or maybe there's no minimum.
I was gonna say the minimum could drop. What would be the impact of that?
I mean, and let's
Acre,
say if the
residential
maximum was a half acre, it's 3 different, you know, development tracks, which that's not ideal. Maybe, and maybe that's a real life scenario where you say, hey, you don't want to have half acre. I've got a 1 point whatever acre lot and it should be 2 acres or something like that. Or the Burger King site, you know, but having the minimum doesn't really make sense to me.
The contract, if I can put some, isn't there something in the United States that there's a density minimum,
The density maximum,
density maximum?
40 dwelling units per acre.
But
But, and I think the 3 acres just came out of my head. That's where it came from. I mean, I don't know what the planning commission's desire is, whether you want to encourage this anywhere in the town center, or you want to limit it somehow. Now, we already limited it by saying it can only be adjacent to the NC 2, 3, and CS, and it can't be in the retail.
How big is your lot again?
1.2.
I would say 1.2 is a great max.
So you wanted to, and stunning, but it needs to, assuming one Burger King site, we call it, to use it, it has to
Fall in. Sure.
Maybe it's 1.5 then. But it seems putting these minimums that it flies directly in the face of, you know, our patterns of
I
development. in
think
the
this was also more for, I don't know how to put this. When you're looking at the use, you're more looking for either, not necessarily specifically the Burger King development, but more for things from the size of 210, 214 West Washington to up to some of the larger ones like Burger King. So we may go from 8 units to larger, you know, up to 42 in this case, or maybe a little bit more. That, and kind of giving a little bit more spare room going up. Is 3 the perfect number? Don't know. I kind of liked it when it was brought up. I thought it made a good cap so that you couldn't do too much. You couldn't take up too much space. And it really specified, you know, a really lack of those spaces being easily created right now. So that was kind of why I agreed with putting the 3 in on it. And the idea was to keep them, because even like the 210, 214 is still over an acre of space. So it allowed for them to build up to 42 units there if they really wanted to. They only wanted to go 8. They're still, the space was easily done for what they wanted to do. And then it leaves for the tighter density that Pete was looking to get done too, so.
Yeah.
That was, when I was looking at it, that's why I was recommending 1 to 3.
Right. Well, I do think we're opening ourselves, like, we're causing an incentive to build some things that I think can really contribute to the fabric of the borough, really contribute to homeownership and all that. And I think it's really good. I would just say that I think it'll be a stronger ordinance if it was, the minimum was nothing or very small, and our max was quite a bit smaller, just because then we're more incremental. Burger King site is huge. 1.2, you know, if you had 1.5 acres, we're talking about a small area in our town. That's you know, we keep it smaller. I think it's smaller capital, a little bit smaller developers. That there's nothing stopping a developer from doing 2 different phases, phase 1, phase 2, you know, and it just makes you pause a little bit more. And so I personally think it would be a stronger ordinance if you had
You'd
a
rather do
much smaller minimum or 0, and you had something like 1.5 or something as your max. But that's just my 2 cents. That was the thing that jumped out at me on this.
Steve?
I agree with that. I like Thomas's thinking with that. You know, you don't want to incentivize somebody to come and, you know, take down a couple buildings so they can get to that minimum of an acre. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Quinty, thoughts?
Not really, but I do think that's a good idea by Tom right there. Yours is 1.2, right? 1.2.
1.3.
1.60. Okay. I like the idea if we put a 0 and a 1.5, and then that way, because even 1.5, that's still gonna allow.
It's huge.
Still gonna allow.
Yeah,
it's huge.
And there's, again, you could just make it 2 different development
Right.
phases, right? Like a
Right.
developer can come right back and do the neighboring
Okay.
lot.
The only thing I would ask is not to base it off.
No.
Yeah, not 1.3, 1.5.
Well, no, base it off of what you feel is actually an adequate size.
Sure.
If you feel that it should be less than that, then it should be maximum at 1, then say that, but,
Well, if our original max is 3,
yeah.
and they
I-
can
I'm
phase
saying,
it, if that's, yeah.
I can't say anything good or bad.
I also think we do need to keep in
That makes
mind,
sense.
although I agree. Because we brought this up the last meeting, but we didn't have you here to support it more and champion it. So I agree with the no minimum and the lower max, 1.5 is fine. There's not actually that many properties. We do, just keep it in mind, we're talking about a very small, even smaller than our normal town center. The number of properties that this could apply to.
Well, I think the worry is that they're
Yeah.
going to start Eli's going to start creating those.
And I do understand that, but I still don't, there's not another Mitch's Gym
Right.
size property out there, even if you bought up, you'd have to spend more money buying people out of their homes than I think would make it worth it. But I still agree with the general approach. Pete, did you have something you wanted to add?
So, and I don't speak for Eli on any of this stuff, but if you've noticed, he hasn't built Reuben signs, and this could transform that into townhomes.
So I had that note on
That
my
was what I
last
was,
week's working
right.
session, because it's the only, so we
And I
go.
can be very, sorry,
Yeah.
I can be very clear, I don't speak for anyone.
Sure.
I just, when we were thinking about something, we originally had put some notes together for this. When we talked to Tom, and Brian actually had put out, Neil had put out these side, maybe he didn't put out the size, maybe Tom did, but we had proposed some different ideas, and when we did that, I went and looked, I think Brian sent me a list of the parcels that might be affected, and then when I saw roofs and stuff.
The one thing I would say to that is like half of a block kind of makes sense, and that's what you have, and that 1.5 would probably cover that. Rubenstein's actually spans a street. I think Minor Street ends into this massive structure. And so if that happened to be 2 different developments side by side, you know, would that really slow Eli down too much? I would hope not, you know, hopefully that, you know, maybe you could even extend that street in there. And then it would maybe just be 2 different developments. But that is a good point.
I do know that site's burdened with the floodplain.
Yeah.
So the only way you're building anything there, or where I was working on, across the street here, is everything has to be on a podium. So
Yeah.
it might make it tricky for something like that there.
Yeah,
I guess you could have two separate. plugins.
I'm doing it at the townhouse home in Atlanta, and we just have the little flow things.
Segment this.
One of those things, it's like a little, it's like a louver, because it's all tucked under.
Yeah, they put them at the beach.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. And then that goes for FEMA and we're good to go. You just have to keep conditions space.
Thomas, you know.
It's about 2.25.
It's just under 3. It also borders the mixed use district, which isn't included in the definition of this. It borders NC2, but it also borders the MU district. So I don't know if we need to add that, if we wanted to at least give that property the opportunity.
Oh my goodness, it would be nice to give that property the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So we might want to add, it's the only property when I looked that borders the mixed use
That's in the
district.
town center.
But
That's in the
that
town
still
center.
Would be, it's still adjacent to NC.
So yeah, so I guess legally
At
it
least one
still
side
meets
has
the
to be-
requirement. So that's fine. I didn't know if we needed to add mixed use,
Okay.
just to be sure. But yeah, so then it's fine.
I like giving the opportunity for that to become,
Well, we are, if we get this going. I mean, that'll do it.
and then, but that's leaving that max.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
So that's still, all we would be doing, if anything, is just dropping the minimum.
Well, make that 0. And
Make that 0, make it
1.5. Is that what
Well,
you said?
No,
if they wanna
because I
include-
think I'd like to give that property the opportunity to
To just keep it at 3.
consider townhomes as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I
just
mean,
leave
it would
that
be
with us.
real easy to take it in 2 tranches, but I hear
Sure,
you.
sure. Whatever incentive we can provide.
Yeah.
But I think then someone can run numbers and decide whether or not that we want to see dollars today or tomorrow. Yeah, right.
What's the acreage?
It's about
Oh.
Mitch's gym.
Oh, is that what, I'm
No,
sorry.
this is-
Rubenstein.
Oh, Rubenstein.
I just measured it from Google Earth, so I can't, not being exact, but it's about 2.25 acres.
I think it's subdivided.
You could, I mean, it's a large parcel. But density wise, you're looking at 80, 90 plus units on there, potential for sale. So,
So we're okay with 0 and 1.5.
no, 0 and 3.
Oh,
I'm saying 3,
I'm
just to
saying-
make it clear.
I'm saying 3,
that
just
this
to make
is
sure that
included in
this falls into that. I just want to be clear that
I understood, but
I get
then
that.
you're opening it up to what you talked about.
I think that's fair enough.
Somebody buy property and tear stuff down.
Right.
Right. Well, what do you
I
think?
mean,
You
that's-
wanna Take that,
I think, my preference would be the 1.5. At 1.5, you're still opening up a huge amount of demolition opportunity and incentive. So what's the difference between 1.5 and 3? I'd rather see the smaller stages, but I get your point that it would be so much preferable to see that as long as it's not developed like these townhouses adjacent, which are an eyesore, but follows the HARP guidelines as this document suggests that it should.
The other thing I
What-
would say is that you could also just buy them up, even next to them and just put them into lots at 1.5 and have separate developments. And still buy up.
Right.
An entire 3-4 blocks.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
So if sitting in at 3, you guys still have to approve these developments.
I would say in that flood, though, there may be advantage just to set on top.
I think the important part was not lowering the top. The important part was getting rid of the bottom one. Because then if somebody has a 1/4 acre, if Eli has a 1/4
don't
acre, he
have to
doesn't
make-
have to
make the
You
minimum.
don't have to.
buy up and
consolidate
demolish the
in order to have-
neighbors.
Right.
So leave 0.
I think that would be a valuable change for this.
I think,
for this.
yeah, eliminating the minimum
Yeah.
is, yeah, I agree with that. And that property, at least in Chesko views, the Rubensteins is too different.
And I think that this
parcels.
ordinance makes a lot more sense now that we have, at least the start of the conversation regarding a town architect. Somebody who will really oversee these HARP guidelines, because they really had no teeth in the other ordinances. But I'm really grateful for that move, because I think that's going to be a critical piece of this.
And that, I think I brought this up last time. Are we confident that the hard guidelines are mandatory and we're going to get what we want? For example, And if this, remember, you want a brick facade all around.
The HARB guidelines don't require that.
Right, so that's what I'm trying to say. So if you don't want vinyl siding,
The HARB guidelines don't allow that. Yeah, I mean, it is a tricky thing with the HARB guidelines, and I think that, you know, they write these certificates of, no, they write these, CO, appropriateness, I was about to say occupancy. You know, the Borough Council, and then Borough Council is the one that weighs in. In a situation,
here,
right, I was about to say, in a situation like this, are they writing the COA to you, Aaron, and then you are basically assessing the project on that, or how would that work?
That, the certificate of appropriateness goes to council.
no, but it wouldn't apply here. In other words, that certificate's only if you're in the HARB.
Sure, right, and I'm just saying,
Not the HARB, in the historic district.
right,
So the purpose of this reference is just to use those as guidelines.
right,
And
but,
and the borough historic architect would review
Mhm.
whatever Pete submits in this case to make sure it complies with the guidelines. And that here, or he would issue a letter.
right.
Just to be, Tom, are you suggesting we should or should not, could or should add, maybe, a quality of materials like brick, stone, clapboard, like real materials, not vinyl? I mean, is there,
It's in the HARB guidelines. I
it's
would
in the
say.
HARB guidelines that says that. If you're saying, if.
I
you-
think we have to stick to our guns. It's
Sure.
already in the HARB guidelines.
Sure.
Well, I think this provides the same mechanism as in the height overlay district that we have now, that
Yeah.
we'll be able to more closely stick to our guns because of the
And
HARB.
I think this will be
So I'm-
much more natural because if it's townhouses,
Yeah.
they're already going to be using materials and forms and proportions that match. Carol's argument against the other one was this very large structure by its nature cannot conform.
Sure.
We're setting up a situation in which you're asking HO 60 building to comply with HARB guidelines that are clearly written for much smaller structures. And so that's already at odds. But my only point was that now we're gonna have these letters from Carol, and hopefully I was just on a call with her earlier today, and she was saying I could come to some of these meetings, and I think that could be really valuable.
Yeah,
Sure.
what's gonna happen, she's gonna basically become a like consultant, same as you would have with Panini or you would have Tom today
Mhm.
on the plan. She would come in and just review it to make sure that it is conforming with what our require of these materials. And write a letter and write comments if she feels that this isn't appropriate, if this is appropriate, whatever it is, just like you would do on any other consultant that would work for.
That, Jim, my 2 cents would be that I would think that there's so much meat in those HARB guidelines that at least it might be worth running with those for a while before we kind of assess and say, oh, maybe there needs to be a few added tweaks.
Sure.
There's a lot there already.
Here's my point. 10.2 is a section about new construction, and it says the use of historic exterior wall materials such as brick, cut stone, or wood siding and their related details are strongly encouraged. That doesn't say it's mandatory. Then it says cement fibers, synthetic clapboard, siding is manufactured smooth surface, blah, 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 is acceptable on primary facades. The use of vinyl or aluminum siding is not recommended except on secondary facades. So that means you could do the sides and the back with vinyl.
Mhm.
That's my only point.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. We could probably, but we could probably add right within here
Right.
and say, no,
Right.
then that's not, we're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
looking for vinyl. This,
Right.
we'll let you have the density, we'll let you have,
It's definitely not vinyl.
right.
Because, and that's throughout these guidelines. It says
Yeah.
it is recommended.
Sure.
It doesn't say you shall.
CJ, you had a comment?
Yeah. We're going back to the, like, stuff that we danced on heads and pins before about. What's the primary facade?
I mean, the definition of facade is actually the street frontage. It's not the
Which
side.
is not consistent with actual architectural terminology. Facade could be any of four sides.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, not that I'm gonna write this for you, but, you could use the language of, like, the historic ordinances which say things like visible from a public way or something like that.
Sure.
You don't have to impose it on all four sides. But the notion of being visible within the context
having a town center image, I think should be enforced.
I like that when we had, I'd like to add something like that, though, just to prohibit.
Right, I guess in the past, the way that HARB continues to, I think, do their valuable work is they've set up norms. So it does, you're right, it does say that, but they're only gonna write that certificate of appropriateness if it follows, you know, they can't put any vinyl windows in, it has to be wood. They have their whole laundry list, and some that's in there, some that's not. And I guess that you do open yourself up to litigation if you're putting this into zoning and then you're trying to hold them to it. There might be a developer who's willing to bring you to court when your HARB applicants really don't. So I get that that is a,
Yeah, and I think we're not really looking at as HARB and a HARB or certificate appropriate.
No, but I just
because
mean-
we're saying we're reviewing it from a plan commission standpoint and having a review by the professional that says this is or is not consistent with what we're looking for
sure,
from an architectural standpoint, because we don't have a architectural review board. So that's in lieu of that,
Right.
trying to
right,
push those standards up.
right,
So I like a similar language to that, except I would like to actually say, I mean, we want to weight it to the fact that we are looking for those real materials, especially
point.
from public ways.
right,
If we were to look at, and I'll just call them secondary facades, those ones back a house or only visible from within the development, to have the ability to back those off to like a cement board.
that's right. And,
But not a. not a
and
vinyl.
maybe, and you can always back down in a later year, but to start out with, you know, having anything that fronts a public street be brick, that's a no-brainer, easy step. We know that that's gonna be
Or cut stone or
short.
wood fiber.
Yeah. But you might even go with like a masonry material, it might not
Sure.
even, you know, because the
I
wood is
just want
usually
a real
secondary.
material.
That's
I'm
right.
just not looking for like a vinyl siding or an aluminum siding.
Right.
Tom SD, should we add a sentence? You want to?
Also, if you want to put in specific requirements or prohibitions, then that's sort of outside my realm, so
Okay.
someone will have to decide what they are.
Okay,
I mean, when I originally thought about this ordinance, I put things in like no building shall be composed of concrete mason units, precast concrete panels, cast in place concrete, metal panels, aluminum, vinyl siding. But that was based on another district in the borough. I can't remember the name, but that's already in your ordinance somewhere,
okay.
but not for this new.
Are we voting on this tonight? Like, does this have to happen tonight, or should it happen?
I'd like to move it forward to recommend to go towards smart growth and or borough council to allow Tom to actually officially put an ordinance in place. So I
think
just,
it might be really valuable to get Carol's 2 cents on like,
Yeah.
hey, how
I
can you?
don't-
okay,
Yeah, this is the significant change. I don't think we can move it forward without talking to Carol and reviewing it, that language together.
well, I don't know if you two have anything, but do you both think that we should have something?
I'd like to see it. I'm a little wary of adding specific requirements like
Right.
this. Well, as Tom said, it actually is, and CJ pointed out in historic, if we have language that that's already exists somewhere else in our code, and there's a precedent for this and something we can base this on, I think then, yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, and believe it, it's actually 112-407 institutional overlay district. And you'll see in there some very specific requirements.
That was gonna be what I said. Why don't we let Tom find specifically what he was looking at? We can review it. I will make one admin. I don't want you guys to rush through this.
Yeah.
This is a big change and this is an important change. So make sure that you're as comfortable as you can get with it and as strong as you can get with it at this point. Someone's always going to take a pot shot at it down in the future, and something's always going to be found in the future that could be worked one way or the other, and we can deal with that when that occurs. So make it the best you can right now, and don't worry about rushing it through. We want to get it done quickly as we can, but we want to get it done correctly too.
we're also, I think, trying, because I think all the neighbors and the town would rather see, let's say, the Burger King development developed underneath these guidelines. So to a certain extent, that is a
There's a
little bit of a
clock.
race.
There's a
I think
ticking
we
clock,
do need
so
to get this thing
Need to
passed,
keep moving.
just to keep that option open, for that developer.
Not saying there isn't a clock, I just don't want you to rush. and
Yeah.
Not get it done the way you need to get it done.
So Tom, just to clarify, that ordinance of the institutional overlay, would it apply to every place?
I don't know if this has ever been used. It's something called a unified institutional development. I don't know if it's ever used,
So that doesn't
but there are
I've tried to
really
find-
specific.
But that doesn't sound like residence to me, that sounds like.
No.
Like it
No,
would.
you might be able to take
I mean,
some
they're
language out of it.
really,
Yeah.
this thing is highly detailed,
Was that
like putting soldier courses on the brick and all kinds of things.
Well, let me,
I'm not suggesting we do that.
I'm sure it got
I'm
copies from
suggesting
some other
It's a
municipality.
model for some of the prohibitions that you might.
well, I just want to reread E here because we modified it last time and it's basically what it's speaking to. The design guidelines for the Westchester Historic District, July 2002, as amended from time to time, shall be used for the design elements of the buildings, structures, and the overall development, including but not limited to massing, scale, proportion, rhythm, building materials, roofs, windows, and streetscapes, to the extent that design guidelines may be inconsistent with or contrary to the requirements of the section 112.916. The requirements of section 112.916 shall prevail. The preliminary land development application shall include plans, conceptual building elevations, diagrams, photographs, and other documentation to demonstrate compliance with the design guidelines. The preliminary plan and foregoing documentation shall be sent by the borough to the borough historic architect for review and comment and a determination of compliance with the design guidelines and the standards of section 112.916.
But the guidelines don't have requirements.
Yeah,
They have
because that was-
recommendations.
Right, because that was the language you just read, right? The shall.
Not that-
No, it's,
But, yeah, we can be repetitious, but the design guides don't seem mandatory.
they're not.
They
They're
think, and remember, the historic district is different, that there's state law that allows the harm to really dictate what's to be done here. That will not apply here. So, I mean, I don't know that it has to be extensive.
No, and I think the limited is better. We want to be really
Right.
careful about putting
But if there are
regulations.
items that you're concerned about.
Yeah.
Then you should either make them requirements and or prohibitions. Now, Pete's here, he might say, I can't move it for around the entire stretch. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
We talked about that.
we did talk about it. I mean, I believe, well, you can speak for yourself, but
I mean, regardless of the final, we were not planning. it. So if you were asking me to bring vinyl, we weren't planning on using it. So,
And there's vinyl on the backs of the townhouses right behind Burger King. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it doesn't exist
right.
Yeah.
on things that we like in general, the fronts of.
yeah,
We talked about brick around the front and wrapping it around and not using vinyl in the back. So I think we're okay as far as that particular property goes, but to add teeth to the entire ordinance amendment, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, this isn't just a one-shot deal.
Right.
Right.
I mean, we're hoping
Exactly.
to use it again. Yeah, so.
Okay.
So if, I'll need direction of what
Yeah.
you want to put in.
And we feel most comfortable having Carol provide that.
To me, it seems like we do need to have a look at that a little more carefully and think about how to do it without adopting. I think that other piece of legislation is probably not the right fit,
Right, it's too.
whichever one.
It's
The one,
The
yeah,
institutional.
the institutional one is not the right fit, and
There's
I,
nothing that stopping taking pieces of that, and
Right.
putting it into your own language.
right.
So I would recommend.
No, and I just meant whole cloth unite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you should all review that, come up with what you feel are the acceptable portions of it.
I guess the one other thing that, sorry, guys. The one other thing that struck me besides the size was the parking. This does require that each dwelling unit have a garage and that one car is in the garage. And I think of so many of our, developments that we like, that we'd want to emulate here. And very often they don't have garages. And so, I'm not even critiquing that parking count, but it just seems like an odd thing to include in the ordinance to mandate a garage. There are a lot of building types that don't have garages.
Yeah, I think we would still want to mandate it to be on site.
Parking. Sure, but it says parking shall be provided, 2 off-street parking spaces shall be provided for each
Sure,
dwelling unit, at least one of which shall be located inside a garage attached to the dwelling unit. And so that, that seems like a requirement that isn't necessary and is going to get in the way in some locations and makes a lot of the building fabric that we'd love to emulate not really make sense. For example, like a narrow townhouse. Okay, you got a 15-foot wide townhouse. You put the garage out the back. You're relying on light from 2 different sides of the building, right? 15 feet. You got the light coming in inside. Your maximum 40 feet of depth, probably. Maybe 36 or whatever for your rooms. You got some kind of central powder room on the ground floor. You got a kitchen in the back. Where are your kitchen windows? If you can separate that garage and you have a little courtyard, great. So why does the garage have to be attached to the dwelling unit? Why is there a garage period? Like if you go down like Darlington or New, a lot of those do have garages, but you'll see like a 20-foot space and you got a courtyard which allows the light into your kitchen or whatever you're using for your ground floor.
Yeah, right here it says parking shall be provided as follows. 2 off-street parking spaces shall be provided for each dwelling unit. You can almost stop there is what you're saying, because the following sentence says at least one shall be located inside a garage attached to a dwelling unit, one of which may be located directly adjacent to the dwelling unit.
And there's already an ordinance that talks about the fact that you can't park residential off of the lot. So like even without even saying it has to be on the lot, now you could include that. There's other language in there that says you can't like rent spaces 2 blocks down, right? One, rental parking is not probably a use in that district or whatever, but like you also have to provide the parking on site. I mean, personally, I'd rather see this parking go into the other parking. Like we had 12 units and down be its own parking category, right? Because we're allowing, like basically we change the parking, you see all the development happen, right? We turn that dial, oops, let's turn it back because really we don't want the 12 and up to have this lowered parking. But you see the incentive, if every single family development has to provide 2 for even like a 15-foot wide townhouse that's a 2-bedroom. Why are we making it harder to do single family for sale than for a rental? So personally, I would rather see it go through that ULI study or whatever. And that way we can weigh in and say, no, actually, because over here they were saying like, hey, we're going to park it less than 1 per unit because we ran the numbers as we're right next to public transportation, all these things. And now there's a little bit of give and take, like the 12.
Well, I think the 2 pieces, I mean, the parking backhandedly sizes or reduces that development potential. And at the same time, with the density we're allowing in here with 40 units per acre, if you were just to do 40 units per acre, but didn't require, say, for instance, 2 off-street parking spaces, that would then say there's going to be 40 potentially cars dumped into the adjacent neighborhood. So I don't think we want to necessarily do that either. So
sure, but the ULI study, it would just be, you could put it in there. You could, like, right now we have 2, but we're having apartments being built that have 1 or less than 1 per unit. So we need to like get a grip on what are we actually asking for.
well, right
I mean,
now
it's not quite, we've changed that a little bit.
Single-family homes or single-family dwellings require 2 off-street parking, right?
Right.
So it's just the same requirement still.
Right.
I don't.
But you see
I
the
don't
incentive, it's
disagree.
hard for a developer to decide, I'm gonna do single family homes if one of the requirements is all this parking when I can do apartment and have much less. Because parking dictates how you can develop.
Sure. And I don't disagree with the not necessarily needing to be making the requirement that one of them is in a garage.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think that there needs to be something that kind of helps I just right-size the development, I'll just say,
Right.
because, and without negatively impacting the
100%.
existing
Definitely.
neighborhood.
And we could, and other things, we've said, hey, if this is a new development, it can't participate in the on-street parking program. And that's one way of trying to internalize and not affect the existing neighbors. But it seems like one, making the garage attached, having a garage period, that doesn't really make sense. Like, why are we mandating that? You know, if you want to stick with the two, okay, I get it. But I would think that we could right size that and say, hey, if it's a 2-bedroom, it's 15-foot wide, you get away with one.
Well, I think even the developers, they would want the cars under there only because that allows them to max out the development.
100%. That's what you see all the time. You lower the parking, it doesn't mean you actually get less parking.
Mhm.
Developers have to sell it.
Yeah.
It just puts more options on the table.
And again, this resulted from plan that Pete presented. Sure. Plan shows garages. And that's where this came from.
Sure. Thoughts?
Thomas, do you foresee the houses with, you know, said like with the courtyards with this? I guess maybe I didn't, you know, I saw based on those drawings. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
The idea of the courtyard and the light, you know, that definitely makes sense. I don't know that that's gonna be, I don't know. I guess I didn't have enough vision to foresee those kind of.
Much of our I would say we have more examples in our town that don't have attached garages. So why are we putting that language in an ordinance when this is what we're trying to emulate? That says you have to have an attached
I
garage.
want to make a verification. This isn't a new ordinance. This is an amendment that's creating a new use.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I just want to be clear on, we're not creating a new ordinance. We're creating a new use, and this is the amendment portion of the section that deals with.
Sure.
You know, I guess you just get.
Yeah, that's mostly what you get. It just, and I would think like, even if you didn't say that garage thing, almost every single new development is gonna be like Pete's. But it doesn't seem like we have to write that into the language.
Yeah, I don't disagree that we can eliminate the requirement to have the garage. If he's providing the garage, it's fine.
I was just gonna comment the 15-foot wide idea, which I'm a big fan of. I do think it's very tricky to develop that in park 2 cars. Like, I think you would need to think about some relief on parking. Maybe, like to your point, if it's a 2-bedroom, maybe that could be, I just don't know where to put the second car if you're building like 3 of those in a row or something. Like how because.
Well, that's where you would have to stack. And then that's the advantage of having the car parked underneath, because if you're having
100%,
that one
but-
car behind it.
Sure. And I do think that, I mean, I know you guys are talking about these narrower townhomes and other ordinances, but I do think it creates a very, and I know this is what Thomas spends a lot of time on, but I do think it makes a very unique product mix in the borough. And I think it can really add to the buyer, that type of product mix in the borough.
I will say this, one of the things when this plan was presented to Smart Growth, the thing that they were looking at this more, so as not to give as many, all the options, but they did like the fact that there was not going to be this mass of cars, and, you know, all these, you know, everything stacked outside. They liked that there was enough, there was the car being put into a garage, at least one of them, in some circumstances, both of them. But that may be something that would be great to have Nicole's input on, or other people's input on, because there was a desire to have the garage for this use, so that we didn't have this massive, large number of vehicles sitting outside of these individual units. Now, in this case, he had already designed it for it. So it's neither here nor there, but I understand what Tom's saying, is you're trying to give as many options as you can, so the development isn't stifled. But there was a desire not to have that many cars visible on the exterior. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, it's just that was one of the things that was noted.
Yeah, the new parking ordinance that went into effect addresses all the dwelling units listed here, except for a quadruplex and a triplex. All the other multifamily or single family detached, two family detached, semi-detached, semi-attached, all that's addressed, requiring 2 spaces for each of those dwelling units. And then, like Thomas said, all tracts containing more than 12 multifamily dwelling units shall provide the number of off-street parking mandated in here. So it's, if we remove the garage, I guess I'm just saying, if we move the garage requirement, then we're already covered under the new parking ordinance section, whatever that is, 112.603 or whatever. So I would just suggest we could remove the whole parking requirement if we're getting rid of the garage.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
From a zoning officer's point of view, it's much easier if I have
It in
the
there.
2 here that's backed up by that,
Okay.
because then I don't have to go hunting down and figuring out where everything is. So if you want to get rid of the garage, you guys make that determination. But I do like the fact that we do have, that's matching what's in here, and we do have it in there. So I can go to one place and look and get this done correctly and quickly. So it does speed it up for me. Or for any zoning officer, I'm not just, don't take it easy on me, but.
I mean, if you look at that, we don't happen to have that sketch here, do we?
No, I don't think.
Okay. I was just thinking about the amount of cars that would actually be on site there and how many would actually be visible. You know, if there's, was it 42 units? 84 cars. So if 84 cars are sitting there versus the number that are actually going to be visible, is probably only 20. It's really only the one stack. There's only the one stacked for the
It seems right.
duplexes. So.
And I recall that when I looked at that, the town center parking regulations, it says there are ones that apply to changes in use, which this isn't, additions to existing buildings, which this isn't, and demolition and construction of a new building, which this is. Well, I guess it wouldn't be, it's a demo. So I remember now that when I read this, it didn't seem clear to me that in the town center, you would have to provide 2 off-street parking spaces. And that's why I put that in there.
Okay.
Doesn't it also say in the town center district, you're not allowed to have parking lots?
Well, I get what you're saying. If we do something small and people can park off to the side or tuck in between things, and what's in our head might be one level, but I also don't want to end up seeing a 40-car surface parking lot somewhere. I'd be crying a lot.
Oops, where was it getting?
It was just a
Just
discussion.
getting rid of it. It's just, why is it required? Why are you mandating it?
Well, it's really, I think developers don't want to do it. He starts chewing up land.
Right.
Extra verbiage is never harmless.
What?
Extra words in an ordinance are never harmless. And if you look at our townhouses, many of them don't have garages. So why would we add a garage in there? We don't know what the unintended consequences of adding extra language.
Well, because you should want it. I think Jim was just going here. You don't want big parking lots in something that's town center. You know what I mean? Like. Look.
I don't necessarily agree with
Be
you.
a walking environment, so even though we want to have cars parked, you don't want to look like you're not town center.
I think even if you struck that line, Thomas, at least one shall be located within a garage attached dwelling. If we struck that, given the option, one probably still will be, just to get.
Almost certainly, it's gonna be that way. But as you know, normally what you're gonna see is a 20-foot wide, because if you're gonna have to do 2, you're gonna do 20-foot wide, you're going to 18-foot or whatever vinyl garage door. And you're just gonna have this long strip of houses, and you're gonna get on the alley, and it's gonna be garage door, garage door, garage door, garage door, garage door. And when asked, that's what we mandated, that we had to put in a garage. And if you're gonna be doing that, yeah, no, I'm gonna do an 18-foot garage door, and that's where we got our 2 cars in there. Why are we mandating that? It's probably gonna happen anyway. But if somebody wants to be creative and separate it, and as we're seeing the borough sometimes, your garage is separated, so you can get a little bit of light into your kitchen. It seems that that extra language of attached garage is unnecessary. It's almost always gonna happen anyway.
Okay. Well, I also wanted to talk about the driveway width. So
Is there some decision made on?
I don't think there's gonna be a decision. I think if we're not gonna make a motion and move things forward, I think we take it to the work session next time and I think give some time to think this out because I do think it's at least, I'm trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand that one because it would be great if nobody had cars and it would be great if we didn't have to look at driveways and garage doors and so on. And everything was in front of a house, but I'm trying to understand how this would impact it. I feel like if we took it out, developers probably gonna put it in anyway.
I've almost never seen an ordinance that talks about garages. It just talks about parking, right? Think about all the ordinance you've ever worked
Sure.
under. Does it say there has to be a garage? Almost never.
Well, I
And
also,
almost always you get tuck under.
I'm just trying to think where it is. You mean, Bill, maybe south of here. There's the ability to put real micro and small housing units, but you're allowed to have parking lots basically adjacent to them. So individuals drive up, park and walk up to just basically a pedestrian oriented housing development. That's not necessarily what we want to see. I wouldn't mind seeing the pedestrian oriented housing, but I don't want to see the parking lots. I don't think it's fair to neighbors either to just see a sea of.
Though we do have screening requirements for anything over, I think, 5 cars.
Sure, but I want to make sure as top priority not to see any of that. Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't want to have to rely on that. Yes,
Just some feedback. I've been talking to some of the people around the proposed Washington Square, Axel Square. And they're concerned, they are concerned, even though parking is being accounted for,
sure.
that they're still gonna have off-street. They're still gonna park
Yeah.
off the street. So I mean, parking, I don't know that I would favor cutting it down to less than 2. And they look out their window and there is a big difference between seeing cars in a garage or seeing a parking lot.
Sure.
And so I don't think they would favor a parking lot somewhere.
If I can just remind you with Axel Square, the alternative plan, the original plan, which is the standard developer plan, was going to be garage doors facing each other on either side. And when we talked to them about having a man door on the outside and change it up, all of a sudden you have room for more than 4 feet of vinyl between your vinyl garage doors. And you have a man door and you have garden space, you have a place to put your condenser and things like that.
Yeah.
So
And
there's a weight.
yeah, and I think just to balance that out also, when people say there's no other parking, the drives, when you're in a private shared driveway situation, and they were talking about either visitors or overflow, there's actually turnarounds and people pull off to the side and park so that I don't think they're gonna be battling for parking on the street. I don't wanna say people are lazy, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They're gonna pull up, they're gonna get as close as possible. They don't
But the
care
residents
too.
are, they're like,
Sure,
hey,
sure.
but.
Well,
you know,
I'm gonna say is that development accommodates cars and parking significantly better than the bulk of the adjacent.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, so that's not gonna be the problem. Yeah,
So, you know,
sure,
but you haven't accounted for it, and I said. I think
Sure,
it'll be all right.
sure. And I think as proposed, this development, I
Yeah,
think kind of balances out and resolves a lot of
agree.
issues. It is fair enough, though, to consider the next developer that may not be as putting the same level of effort or care and
then you
concern
may
into
not
it.
do the project. You're saying, yeah, they're gonna do it anyway.
Well, that's where I was just trying to think that one through, is if you just said, hey, 2 off-street parking, and you put that many units on there, 2 cars outside of every unit, that's a sea of cars.
Yeah.
So it won't actually fit, so that would reduce the amount of units, which is why we're saying in reality, they're gonna want to just get the density back up.
Oh, yeah, always.
So you're either, if you just imagine taking a lot and just parking the lot with no units and then stacking houses on top of it, you have to think that's how you're maxing out a property, you know what I mean? So it's almost like, when you do an office building, you lay the whole property out as a parking lot, place the building on there, so you minimize the loss, right? So the traffic there.
Can we come to a consensus? Or can you guys come to a consensus on how you want to address this?
Why, what I said was, we'll give it some consideration and talk about it in the work session, unless there's some,
I wonder how that affects the
Need to move
applicant's
it forward.
time frame.
how's your time frame, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, that would delay everything a month. I mean, I want to be sensitive to everything that you guys are talking about. It does, we just have as I mentioned before, we have a window here to get this approved, and if we miss it, I can't challenge.
I think that we could make some changes. We could say there's no minimum track size. We could say, for example, we could cut the garage requirement. You could always add it back on, maybe 2 months down, a year down the
I gotta
road.
Make a statement here, that's gonna look like spot zoning. That you're doing this just for Pete's property, can't do that. If we're going to do this right, can't take into his time frame completely in this regard. We have to get this done correctly, because we will be challenged as spot zoning if we allow it now, 2 months down the road, we change it. That's gonna create whether or not it is, it's gonna create the image that it is. So it's really something that we need, if you're gonna get it done and you wanna get it moved through, you gotta come to consensus today, or you have to put it off another.
Well,
toward-
we're not coming to consensus today because we're adding requirements relative to building materials and facades and things like that. I think this garage issue is, while we've had a good discussion, as everybody has agreed, it's gonna happen either way because developers are gonna need a garage or they're not. I'm not as worried about this. I could come down on either side. I could be persuaded either way. I'm more concerned about getting the right requirements in there for building materials and things like that, since we've agreed to do that. So, and that can't happen tonight.
So
So,
I guess what I was wondering is, could we pass it and then have like a further conversation that's gonna happen with Carol, and then that gets presented to Borough Council, like outside of this, like, hey, it has to follow the HARP guidelines, but we need to strengthen those guidelines so the language is mandatory, something like that.
Tom, the ordinance that we have, or if we just say we did move it forward today, does that mean all goes to is smart growth, then Borough Council, and then back to us? Because we gotta get all their comments back.
Has to go to smart,
And then that's basically,
and then it'll go over council.
and then they say, okay, Tom, provide the ordinance.
Well, we already have. that.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, you have a lot of steps here that we don't have in this place. But that's what's required. Go to smart growth. And then smart growth makes a recommendation to council. And then officially, the ordinance would come back. I mean, the MPC process requires you to make a recommendation on a specific ordinance. So I prefer that the ordinance would then come back to you and you would make that recommendation. We send it to the county for 247 review. And it will get advertised. And all that possibly could happen by November.
If we went today. Today's October,
Yeah,
tomorrow's October.
right.
If we added language relative to the materials that said from a public way or street, that they were brick, cut stone, clapboard. And as the allowed, and then as a requirement to this, we could add that as a statement, as a
And
requirement.
I almost feel like we could pass it with like the provision that, hey, we thankfully our solicitor was able to point out that we need to slightly change the HARB guideline language to fit the zoning code, because it's no longer within the historic district. So we have to make things a must, not like it's discouraged to use vinyl, you know, so that, those are tweaks, like I feel like we could pass it and still have a follow-up.
Yes, CJ.
I'm gonna ask a question, Pete, because like, is there a problem running this simultaneously with your land development process? You seem to be like 99% in sync with what they're gonna do and things that they're gonna do like materials.
It's a good,
How to build it, right?
yeah, it's a good suggestion, but we've been, and we can't, I don't think we can submit a preliminary plan to the zoning boards.
Well, we used to do it all the time. Tom. Come
Well,
on.
I mean, there are municipalities that run things simultaneously. I don't know whether the Burgess does that or not.
We used to submit plans to say, you know, submit the zoning change at the same time. Does the borough not allow that or something?
I don't know the answer to that.
Technically, you can run the zoning and together. It is not something that I know of a history of them doing it. Is it possible? Yes. And I don't think we're saying no, can't do it.
Yeah, it's like you can't put the cart before the horse, so to speak, but
Could you, I mean, maybe we could cut through this by looking at what's now in the ordinance for the Institute of Local. And if you look at section, yeah, put it up there somebody, section 112-407. 112-407. Letters and numbers B.
Where's the?
12.
The way I cheat.
D1H.
Look up the code.
Yeah, that one right there.
Take 410.
112-407.
1 second, not there yet. Should be the top, right? That's 410 High Street.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Jim, what if the compromise is that it just doesn't have to be an attached garage?
Sure. Where orange.
Sure.
You know, like to the courtyard sketch that
You're
you
saying
see
in a
along
garage.
New and Darlington.
Sure.
Like, I'm not, I definitely think it would be a stronger piece if we just eliminate that. You don't see garage requirements in any of our other residential districts
Right.
in the town. But I hear you. I hear your concern, but I do think if we could at least separate it, we
Westchester.
open up this opportunity.
I think,
Almost nobody is gonna separate it,
right.
but there is at least this
Scroll
opportunity.
down and
So
go to
if you were
general
to
code.
propose a
Use code
change
on
that
that.
sentence.
Scroll down
I'm okay
right
It'd
there.
just be removing attached to the dwelling unit.
Right.
Because I feel like we could do that. We could get rid of the minimum lot and
Go
then
to
it's a
section-
slightly
He's
tightening
already
up
done,
our.
yeah. He's
Section 112-407.
And then it's gonna be the driveway width. That's the only other thing we want to talk about.
Makes,
Right.
oh, I'm 100% with you there.
1 at 18.
It's like.
I was picking my battles. I didn't like it.
You were with garage?
It's begins with an H. Keep going. Right there, building here. Can we get that little screen off the side? So anyway, that's an example. Maybe that'll do it. Building materials. It says building materials shall contribute to reinforcing the character and identity of the existing neighborhood. No facade wall, and I guess we're saying all four walls shall be composed of the following materials. And then there's prohibitions. And
I don't think that this is applicable to townhouse construction today. Or not applicable enough that we want to pass it with this. I think we would want to tighten up a little bit the hard language.
Okay.
I'm just looking at like, he's not gonna be using CMUs, even if you were to do CMU for your ground, let's say in the flood zone here for Rubenstein, you do CMU and you stucco that can actually be not only a historic, approach, but also like a pleasing one.
Okay, well, I think there's one more subject that I want to talk about, and that's the driveway width. And then we can bounce back to the material one, because from a process standpoint, we're gonna get another couple bites at this.
Yep.
It's gonna go up through Smart Growth, up through Borough Council, and they're gonna make comments. It's gonna come back to us. We're gonna get another shot at making comment there. Hopefully, we're the bulk of the way there. I think we're like 90% there. So it's just some tightening up of language for potential other developments that come by. I think the C1C, let me see here if I can find that here. C1C. Alleys and private driveways serving more than one dwelling unit shall have a minimum of 18 feet in cartway width if one way and 24 feet in cartway if two way. A minimum right-of-way width is not required for alleys constructed as part of the unified resident development, and such alleys shall not be dedicated to the borough and shall be maintained as by an association of the owners by the dwelling units. I think alleys popped in there as a word, but I was thinking driveways. Driveways, I think, should be 18 feet. I think 18 feet is adequate for two-way traffic, but I would say that based on the fact that I live on an alley that's less than 12 feet wide, it's two-way all day long. It gets all the trash trucks. I called Kelly Goff, and I emailed her as well. She did not give an opinion on the two-way traffic or vehicles passing each other. She did just want to see that vehicle templates had been proven out on the site, which had been provided by the developer, so that I had sent that to everybody, showing a trash truck, full-size trash truck that was able to maneuver through that whole development. And so I think that is probably the biggest potential vehicle, unless somebody makes an egregious error there with a moving truck or something. But I think I think it proved out that that was plenty of dimension there for the vehicles to maneuver through those driveways. As the rest of the borough has it, the bulk of the alleys are probably closer to 12 feet. And it's not uncommon. The only individuals that, unless it's a flyer, someone's just cutting through. And I don't think, because of the configuration of this particular property, that's going to be there's any advantage to cutting through here. I think that the 18-foot is actually adequate for a two-way drive. I know it talks about at 24 feet, and it talks about, and then it skips to alleys. So I was thinking relative to this development that we're really looking at, since it's one parcel, that it's really a shared driveway. It's not a street, it's not an alley, it's a shared driveway.
I think that's absolutely the right way to look at it. The alley behind my house, adjacent to my house, is 12 feet. We also have the trash truck go through there. I think one of the things that would highlight perhaps the shared drive is that, and I don't remember seeing it in here, but I know that it would be maintained by the property owner, and I think we could clearly say, hey, this is going to follow under like snow removal, right? The municipality is not trying to plow snow.
Correct.
I would guess that would need to be added onto here. But those dimensions, I was choosing my battles, but I thought that those were suburban dimensions. I mean, these are the dimensions of our major streets. I mean, right now, you see things getting approved to try to narrow it, slow cars down at 8.5 feet for a driveway.
Yep.
Right, like that's for like an actual street, so.
Well, I looked up an F-150, Ford F-150 pickup mirror to mirror outside, it's less than 8 feet. So you can pass two pickup trucks past each other. And that's the tips of the mirror. So that's not to where the wheels are. So if wheels were to pull over to those edges, you have 3 feet clear. So I think that's adequate. And again, I don't care if you post the speed limit to be 10, 15 miles an hour. I don't know what it is in a driveway there, but it'll be a private. Is the adjacent, the properties just to the south of you, are there speed limit signs within that Boxwood Alley or Clinton? Are there speed limit signs?
No.
And,
So-
and to your point, the greater determiner for speed is width and clarity, right? You make these alleys 18 feet wide, you're gonna drive a lot faster. It's gonna be less safe for individuals, bikers, children.
So I would just like to just change it to, we're just looking for 18 feet wide, or I don't know if that's I would not necessarily limit it to a one way.
Well, why stop at 18 if it's gonna be, if you're gonna have a one-way, your alley is 12, my alley is 12. Let's start measuring the alleys in town. Most of them are
Say
probably
a minimum 12,
14.
maximum 18, or minimum.
I'm just saying, and developers are gonna be putting people on either side, so then they're gonna be backing up, so then you're gonna have a backup radius of like 22 feet. So they're gonna want that larger, so I don't think we wanna put like an upward limit, right? Like, cause very likely from.
It was the
backed up-
24 feet wide that I thought was large.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, why put 18 as this minimum when we have all the precedent around us that's much
Sure.
narrower? And it's more pedestrian friendly if it's narrower.
Yeah. Well, I like that 18-foot width. I think that's an appropriate dimension. If we can go more narrow and it functions, great.
Your alley functions, my alley functions, it's better for walking if it's narrower. So having this minimum doesn't seem like it's helping us. The 18. It's gonna be in most developments because they're gonna develop on either side and then they're gonna need back out. So you're gonna have that
What are you suggesting for language relative to that then? Alleys,
It would be interesting to know what our driveway requirements are, because I'm sure that there is zoning regulation for driveways already.
I don't have that, I didn't look that up previously.
But I'm sure it exists. It would just be interesting to see, like,
what are we?
Yeah.
There's nothing specifically that I remember in the zoning ordinance would have to be in subdivision.
but I wonder if we could, Jim, to the point though it exists, we could pass this tonight and then whatever the driveway requirement is, it is, We don't have to repeat it.
97.27.1.
Those are definitely, yeah.
Except where an on-street parking area or garage directly abuts a street or alley, private driveways shall be provided for all residents and construction shall be in accordance with regulations of this section and provide safe access to borough and state roads, to eliminate problems of stormwater runoff and to assure sufficient area for and access to off-street parking. All driveways shall be paved with concrete or
Go
bituminous.
down to F and G and H.
F and G.
You're just gonna. That's where the width and stuff is.
F and G and H.
Right there.
For any driveway serving single-family dwelling unit, the width within the legal right-of-way of a street when carried by bridge shall be minimum of 10 feet. It shall be a minimum of 8 feet at all other points within the property line. A common driveway, as defined by the chapter, shall be sufficient width in the opinion of the borough engineer to provide safe passage of 2 vehicles, or shall have sufficient number of pullover areas to provide safe passage of 2 vehicles. Stipulations for repair and maintenance of a common driveway shall be described. H, driveway entrances into the non-residential single-use property shall be not less than 18 feet in width, shall not exceed 30 feet in width from the street line unless provided within a median divider.
So the main one would be 18 feet, 10 feet off, 10 feet.
Yeah.
off.
So that,
Well, it was a bridge is 10 and a minimum of 8 feet all, so it'd be 8 and kind of 18, I think.
8 to 18.
Well, I mean, that's what it has for a single
Well,
family,
well,
but I mean, like our
the-
alleys are 12 typically.
But the common, the one with the 18, that's the common one coming through.
Well, it just,
The 10 on the
Yeah.
property lines, it's going to be those that are coming off of that common driveway into the actual apartments.
and there was actually 10 feet had to do with like a bridge. And then a minimum of 8.
Yeah, 10 and 8, that's on the private, the actual where you're parking the cars.
Yeah, but that one says into all non-residential.
Right,
So
which this is residential.
this is residential,
On which one?
H,
H?
18
Yeah,
foot.
it just doesn't,
So then the common
It
driveway,
does not apply.
the common
I
driveway is
think
the
G
situation
is
we're
the
talking about
closest.
right now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
8G.
and I think that's a great wording, because then you leave it up to the engineer and it can be site specific. And there's.
My only concern with that would be that when you leave to these engineers are used to, they're always going to err on wider. They're always gonna err on, we're gonna double this up, we don't want pushback, we don't want complaint, we're just gonna, why not make it 24,
Mhm.
So that would be my only concern with that. Our alleys are 12.
And from a zoning perspective, I would prefer to have some cohesion between it, and I would rather have an engineer making the sign off on that. That's the way that would be. I'm not telling you guys what to do. I can't. That's not my position. I'm just saying from a zoning standpoint, it's best to have some cohesion, and it gives us a little more strength. Referring back to something that,
Yeah.
this is the way we do it for these types of developments. And that's what we're requiring in this use. We can even actually say that it has to be designed for the standards of, what is it, 97?
That might be handy to say that, like, it's gotta follow the templates. And then they just have to basically show that, hey, you can back in and out. But you could put a minimum of 12, let's say, for this thing, but just, hey, it's gotta follow G, which means the engineer's gotta sign off on it. And it's gotta go with the templates or whatever, but the minimum is 12.
I like that, because if, I'd rather err to have more green in there if possible. So if we can, and I like G because it also provides some flexibility there for sufficient number of pullover areas to provide safe passage of two vehicles. So it's, I think the
Right.
12 feet minimum, and then just encouraging any green area or pervious area added, as opposed to just requiring it to be bituminous or concrete or something, I think is.
That makes a lot of sense.
So,
Well, that would apply regardless. The subdivision land development ordinance applies.
Yeah.
So if you're saying we'll just change 18 to 12 and delete the rest, we can do that.
okay, perfect.
Would it be handy though, Aaron, I think, to put that like see this or,
I don't have a problem with that, but like you said, it's gonna apply anyhow, because it's land development.
yeah.
so you want it all in one spot.
I would prefer it, but I'm also,
Got
I also
Got you.
don't want Art to be angry with me for making more work for him.
No, I think that would be, the 12 foot would be good. Yes, CJ?
Did you say you're changing it to 12 for 2 edge?
No, I'm not stipulating two-way or one-way. I'm just saying minimum 12.
Well, 2 things. Well, feet isn't. That it's one-way circulation.
It's 18 feet the whole way through, so it could be one or.
That's what you have now. Well, it would be according to what they're saying. It could be 2
If the ordinance allows us to do 2 ways and 18.
I'd rather have,
So are we making the max
Yeah,
again?
if we make it 18 and
Minimum
say 12.
And this although,
So, and
But here's the thing, 12 doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, if you spend time in the
Yeah.
alleys, which I do because I don't want to deal with the people that are on the road. 12 doesn't work. It freaks out a lot of people. If you have room to pull off, okay, it works. And you just gave the example of, 2 F-150s. Let's not be ridiculous and act like that's going to happen on a regular basis. But that's 14 feet, okay? So 12 is a little stringent.
Sure.
I've never heard. of
I mean, I would be.
most of our alleys are 12.
I can't, they don't work. And 2 cars going.
Yeah, for a 2 car, yeah, of course they don't. Yeah, right. You'd have to make them one way at a 12.
well,
Or
then
just
that's
custom.
why I asked.
Yeah.
Both Pete and Jim,
Sure.
are you saying that for 1 way versus 2?
well,
The
we're
answer
not,
was 2 way.
this one here isn't
No.
for, this, I want to keep bringing this up. This isn't for Pete's development. This is.
Yeah,
for-
I know that, so
So-
it's even worse. I was just asking him for a point of clarification of what he was doing.
We're also stating that it comes back to the saldo because of it being a development where the engineer has to sign off on what the minimum size of that common driveway can be.
Yeah, I'm just saying 12's cutting it.
I mean,
Yeah.
may I say something anecdotal?
Sure.
How wide is Prescott Alley that parallels Market Street behind the building I work in?
Where it's been, Where
I
it's
think
been
that's
wide?
Prescott Alley, isn't it parallel
Yeah, mhm.
to Market Street?
Well, it's parallel,
What is
yeah,
that?
it's just north of Gay Prescott is.
Yeah, I
We
can
mark it again.
tell you it's not 15 because
And-
I
and
did
I-
agree with condition there.
I park in a garage there every day,
Right.
where is
and it's
Prescott?
nearly,
It's between.
it's
Market-
very
I
difficult
know
to get
where
in the
Market
garage.
is.
You have to back into the garage.
That's 69 days.
You can't see anybody when you're pulling out of the garage. And the people fly through that alley. So, and you can't, two cars can't pass. The only way they can pass is if they pull into our parking lot or they pull into another parking lot along the alley.
Right.
They cannot pass.
But perhaps the solution is
That's
making it a
little
one-way.
different Because that's not purely a residential development. I'm just wondering whether 12 feet is just too small.
The point I was trying to make is I think you had it right the first time, and I was just trying to clarify that Pete's his original proposal is consistent with what you had in the letter.
Which is providing 18 feet.
Correct.
And I apologize. I know.
No, I'm just trying to figure out where we ended up.
That's
Matt, you
beyond
want
my
to tell us
purview.
what was the
At
end, what was the
this
end summary
point-
of that one?
I think
We're
it
gonna
would-
There is no end summary yet.
To make a point, I think it would probably be better if you just eliminated the minimum and eliminated that, just to state that it needs to be designed in conjunction with, or by standard set as 97 dash, whatever.
Well, that doesn't address Thomas's concern.
But well,
It's the reality either way, though.
it's the
if it's
reality of the way,
valid.
because then the engineer can say. oh,
Because I agree with
we're
you.
doing it-
I don't like it, but
The engineer can say that if you're doing this at one way, then we can go to the minimum of 16 foot or 18 foot. They'll put the statement in there. If you're doing it two ways, then it has to be, 20, 18,
Well, we
24,
can-
whatever it is.
We could say they shall be 18 feet. Not a minimum, not a maximum.
But what Jim and Thomas are saying is 18 feet's too wide for one way. Which is what our draft says, minimum 18 feet if one way. I don't think I heard any arguments that 12 feet is too narrow for one way. And that's what we're talking about. See, and CJ, you might not agree with that, but it's still,
well, that's
but
why-
that's the borough engineer's role, then, yeah, I understand that, but they're gonna have to show that.
So that's why.
But that's why we have turning templates in a preliminary plan,
And
we have to review
Not
them.
only that, if you go to like a historic alley or historic street, they're not consistent. You're not dealing with like, hey, we're 18 feet no matter where we are, right? Areas for Pete's development, for example, it's gonna be different sizes because the blocks are different. So you're gonna have a varying size, and that's actually what's gonna make it way more interesting. Maybe you have a portion where you're trying to be more pedestrian, you do narrow it down to 12. Anywhere where you need the turning radius, maybe you open it back up. That variance, it's the Leon Career thing, life is a squiggle, death is a straight line, let's add a little bit of squiggle. And not get too prescriptive.
I'll just leave that in the audio portion of the minutes.
Squiggles.
Okay.
No,
I
that
like
was my favorite part of the whole meeting, so.
it.
All right.
Yeah, so we can either it sounds like we're either going to refer directly to this in our ordinance, or leave it unspoken and just go by this, or say minimum 12 and then refer to this. That's what I'm hearing as the options. Minimum 12, not for two-way, just minimum 12. And then the borough engineer ultimately has review. And then we'll vote on based on the borough engineer's comments.
I'm gonna reread this for G. A common driveway as defined by this chapter shall be sufficient width in the opinion of the borough engineer to provide safe passage of two vehicles. Or shall have a sufficient number of pullover areas. That's a or. To provide safe passage of two vehicles. Stipulations for the repair and maintenance of common driveway shall be those as prescribed for private streets. Okay.
The only comment, I just had one comment to what you're saying, is that, you know, if your goal is to minimize this reasonably, the engineers tend to, they easily could come in and say, oh, two-way has to be 24 feet. So, I mean, maybe one solution is, and I don't know if this works, but it's a min of 12 and a max of 18. And then the engineer has to sign off between the 12 and 18. That, I don't know if that's a perfect solution, but that would be my only concern is if you don't give them direction on the
Yeah.
decks, are they gonna just come in here and
Sure.
this,
Well,
like to their point suburban?
To mine is, and to put us right into the right category, we're not talking about a street, we're not talking about an alley, we're talking about a driveway. And as a driveway, I don't mind minimum 12, maximum 18 as a driveway.
Yeah.
If it turns into an alley or if it's proposed as an alley somewhere, then requirements of an alley,
Yeah.
described. So, but I still think it needs to proof out by the turning templates. We've already shown, the, garbage trucks in those turning radiuses, and there's plenty of clearances there. I understand what you're saying, Thomas, is even if if there was nothing and you just ran a whole bunch of tire tracks through until that created the width. So somewhere as you're gathering and maybe a little wider at intersections and more narrow, almost like walking a sidewalk path.
And also, if we do put this minimum 12, maximum 18, the borough engineer is going to review this ordinance amendment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we think that's the right,
They don't necessarily, not
It's not
necessarily.
necessarily.
even, what
Not
if,
typically.
well, okay, not typically, but if we put this provision in there, shouldn't they review that? Okay, well, it seems to me like they might want to.
Well,
We
my
might want to have the
question is,
borough engineer.
If,
review it.
even if you put this in there, doesn't this supersede it?
You still have to comply with subdivision.
Right.
But it couldn't be more than 18 feet. It doesn't, that would not supersede zoning.
Well,
So if it says a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 18, he's got to work with the engineer.
Okay.
and he's got to show that the turning templates still work in there. It would still back up into it, you still would make vehicles, so, which this does, you have it drawn at 18 and it works.
Well,
But it might
that
not
goes a
always,
little
though.
different. If the zoning ordinance says it can't be more than 18 and the turning templates don't work, the developer's gonna say, well, I can only do 18, it's in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I don't think we can have a max because like sometimes you need to
Get rid of the
use,
max.
sometimes you need to use these for fire access and a fire access code is 20. Right, so like I would think it'd be, we shouldn't be putting in maxes because sometimes like. Maybe you can get fire in off in the front street, but sometimes you gotta use something like this for fire and then like, what are you gonna put like fire code up against zoning? Like, obviously we can't do that.
Sure. CJ?
Yeah, the thing I was gonna say, the max, I was pretty much gonna say what
Okay.
Tom just said. The max is a problem. Pete, in your development, sometimes you don't have things like parallel.
Right.
Some of those look like they could be wider than 18, which would keep you from doing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
All right, so we'll just go minimum 12. Yeah. Okay, let's just go minimum 12. And then templates.
I love it.
And then also, I'd encourage any other material other than bituminous.
You could have it where, working on one recently where we said you can't have asphalt meet the asphalt of the street, so you at least have to break it up, and then like, it's like 2 feet of like pavers, cobbles, whatever it is, but it just breaks it up where it's
Mhm.
like, you don't have asphalt running in the asphalt, but
So,
we've already talked about this one.
so we're just
Not gonna get it done.
deleting it one way and 24 feet in corporate width of two way. So it'll say alleys and private driveways serving more than one dwelling unit shall have a minimum of 12 feet in carway width.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
I agree with that.
And we have this backdrop of knowing it's gonna go in front of the engineer and it's gonna have to pass all these things anyway.
All right. We beat that one up pretty good, so 0. Okay,
The only thing other thing I can suggest with it.
yes,
Building materials, and you just raised another one, surface materials. That just appoint a committee. Like you, whoever, can knock it around and make a decision. Then I can put it in the ordinance. Or have a special meeting, which I'm sure you don't want to do.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
I thought it, I didn't say it out loud.
No, if you need a special meeting, we'll get it taken care of. That's not a problem. You guys determine how you want to deal with this and I'll facilitate.
so I guess, I'm fighting two things here. One is I'd like to see this thing move forward so we can just keep the ball rolling and the momentum going, all right? While everybody's enthusiastic and interested in this, I don't want to kill it somewhere off in
That's
a
right.
subcommittee.
Give
there.
Eli as long as possible to change his mind about Rubenstein's.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we're really down to is just strengthening up that requirement, but that in that language, I actually liked, I don't remember in the what that district was that you referenced, but actually that beginning portion of it was not a bad generic statement there that talked about that.
Where
Where
was the institutional overlay district? I have no idea where that is, but it doesn't really matter.
112.
But I mean, the buildings it's designed, it's speaking to are nothing like.
Sure,
That's right.
totally get it.
That's
I'm just
the
talking
problem.
about the language in.
No, I know, but
That's-
Percent.
That's
it's just not that easy to
Right.
pull that out and throw that in there like right now. It's-
Right now, no.
Well, I think that we have a paragraph that deals with it, which is C1E.
We do, but it references the guidelines which don't say shall. They say may and recommended.
I think we said it was okay that you could recommend this up to SmartGov and allow with the condition that you set up a committee to review the
I
design.
think that could be a really good idea. Because I think of the one missing piece, it's materials. We could all agree that like, it would have to be in the like, it's just strengthening the language. The language is a little bit lacking, but it has it all there. So I think you could even say like, we approve, like, it's the HARB guidelines. It's just tweaking it so it has zoning teeth.
It's just like the way we have with our building codes. We have certain things that the PAUCC require that we amend in our ordinance. You can amend the hard
Sure.
statements with saying this shall be instead of, or however it's going. It's gonna take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. You could possibly, I believe, am I incorrect in this regard, Tom?
I don't think it would be too big of a lift to do in a little special work session.
I didn't understand your question.
My question is, can they refer it to SmartGov? Write a vote on recommending this as it is with a condition of reviewing the design criteria from that section.
Right. I think they could do that. And in the meantime, the committee can work on it.
Yep. And we can set up a special meeting, work session for you guys earlier. Just to work on that.
Or that, the entire commission can meet in a special meeting.
So that special committee would meet between now and our next.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand the timeline.
I
here.
think it could be pretty quick.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just, yeah, I'll make sure.
But that'll give us an opportunity to move this forward and keep the time frame moving. So that we're not having any delays in the processing.
Yeah, I'm, just for reference, I'm looking at the design guidelines again, just to see what the language is. And it does say architectural materials such as brick and stone shall be utilized to the maximum extent possible to complement existing brick and stone materials. Architectural materials shall have colors that are not white or bright, shall be composed to vary the plane and or details of a facade through the use of. So there's plenty of language in here that is shall be, not just may or recommended. So
It does seem though, if we were to pull out a little bit to Jim's point, you
There's
know,
still no-
and then say like, for example, no vinyl, that would be a valuable
Sure,
step
sure.
and a quick one.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be hard to go through this and strengthen the language. I agree. So I'm fine with that approach.
Okay, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call a motion then that we to go ahead and move this proposed ordinance for the new use in the town center forward, which would include any edits that we made at today's meeting, as well as will include or on condition that we review some of the design criteria and incorporate it prior to it moving forward to the next,
Smart.
to smart.
Well, okay. Are we recommending approval of the ordinance? Is that
That's what I'm
as?
recommending.
I just want.
That's the
not-
motion.
Yeah, yeah, okay, well, you didn't.
I'm sorry.
You said recommend approval of,
Probably
you just said move forward with.
Recommend approving the ordinance.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm
Then
glad-
review-
I just want to make sure I understand it. What, Aaron, what are you saying?
recommend ordinance on the condition of reviewing the building criteria and amending any HARB recommended regulations. That's not the greatest.
We're gonna need to read that back.
Oh,
The only thing I'm gonna say is that the last meeting, you told public you were not gonna do this. So
I told the public what?
you said it would not be voted on next week.
this ordinance? Or was
This
that-
ordinance?
I don't remember that.
Hmm. At the working session?
Last,
Yes.
I
it
know
wasn't
at
the
the-
preservation ordinance? I wonder which one. I wonder if it was this one because we
know-
got the draft of this from Aaron. This is the preservation one.
No, it was.
With this one? Okay.
I didn't say.
I know that I made a statement that at the working session, we would not be moving forward with any, it would not be voting or making any motions at the working session. So I would have to go back and I would just say that's what I recall, but I'd have to go back. Wouldn't be the first time I misspoke, but I mean, I was pretty sure what I was talking about relative to the working session was there were no motions happening at that working session.
It doesn't matter.
So we're at a voting
And,
session.
and I would just say, I apologize for not putting more time in it. And Jim, you did a great job of getting us this draft early before our working session. And a lot of this could have happened, earlier. So,
Sure, no worries.
I know it was the intent to move this along quickly, which is why you were giving us that draft 3 weeks
Sure.
ago.
Why, there's multiple stops in between now and becoming an ordinance.
That's
I
right.
think
Many,
I'd like to see this ordinance put into motion here.
100%.
But I would also like to ask Matt if he can reread.
I'm typing.
back. Thank
Give
you.
me a second.
Take your time.
Wouldn't it be appropriate to motion to forward the Unified Residential Development Ordinance as amended this evening to Smart Grade with the condition that the planning commission will submit supplementary design guidelines conforming with building materials. How's that sound?
Perfect, like a lawyer.
Much better.
I didn't. I've gotten 3 different suggestions and I'm trying to type down. I'm not a stenographer, unfortunately. But I heard the general theme of it. I'm sorry. What was the, sorry, Don, what was the
Planning commission.
part about the contingent on the following? So vote to recommend approval of the draft ordinance amendment is what I had written. You said it a little differently. Contingent on the following: incorporation of the changes discussed tonight or at tonight's meeting, or what, and contingent on, I
think it's okay, incorporating changes made tonight and, I don't know what you want to call them. You don't want to call them design guidelines. What do we call it? Building material requirements.
well, we do, I mean, I think it is review of the design guide, review and
it's just a slight rephrasing of the harb. I don't think we would be adding anything to it, just be like picking and choosing which ones are necessary. So it's not, please don't use vinyl, it's, you can't use vinyl.
And PC review and incorporation of select sections of the design guidelines or something to that effect. Is that reasonable?
That'll perfect.
Yeah, I think previously Tom had used the word requirements or prohibitive. Either a requirement or a prohibitive statement.
All right. So, Jim, you moved to recommend approval of the draft ordinance amendment contingent on the following: incorporation of the changes discussed tonight and PC review and incorporation of select sections of the HARB design guidelines.
I did.
Thank goodness. I will second whatever I just read.
Okay, fair enough. Comments? CJ? Anything? Pete?
I appreciate it.
Lisa? Thanks. Joanne? Nothing. Darryl?
The ambulances are 450,
450?
at 450s.
Metaphor. 450. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, any development has to show that first responder, it has to show, you know, the fire code is usually 150 feet to all corners of the structure. So like, there's so many other things that have to be met. That's partly why we can be confident in saying, hey, this minimum 12, because we're not boxing ourselves in like there's. I made a little cheat sheet for Jim. I sent him over, but it was like, here are the 3 pages of just all the different codes and ordinances that has to be met, you know, for these structures. So zoning is one little piece, and it's our one chance to uphold the character of the borough too, because fire codes aren't there to uphold the character of the borough. This is our one ordinance to do that.
Yeah. Okay, I got a motion on the floor, so we're gonna vote. Quinty?
Yes.
Steve?
Aye.
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 And
Yes, they tell me I'm not clear. So, Raj.
I was about to say, it would be great to just get the real brief overview of what those operations were tonight, just so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, I can get you this time.
I think the other 2 issues we had under old business, one was the preservation ordinance. We were tabling that just so we don't conflate
Yep.
ordinances or issues or concerns. And the other one was 700 South High Street. So we're waiting for engineer as well as residents meetings. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Just a reminder that we are sharing the engineering with West Goshen. And that they've agreed on a separate engineering company that is independent of both boroughs. I don't remember, sorry.
No worries. The other one was that build to ordinance that you had put forward. It's actually written here. And I believe this captured everything we're looking for in the amendment. Tom, SD, is this in a format where we could move it forward?
I think you already did that
Okay,
earlier in the meeting.
Yes, you did.
but did I vote? Did we vote on it?
Yeah.
We didn't-
No, we didn't vote.
No, I don't-
Already voted on that.
No, we had voted on the idea to move that to Borough Council and Smart Growth, who then should have notified you to put together the ordinance. Backhandedly, you started with this one and pulled this out and have it. So it sounded like from Aaron that this was already given the go-ahead to go ahead and put together. So since it's put together, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the recommendations for the amendment for the town center, whatever is it here, dimensional requirements.
I think it's appropriate to recommend to Borough Council that they enact this ordinance.
Recommend approval of the revised ordinance amendment. That's usually what we have.
Okay.
And just to clarify, it's just that, you know, we have all those dimensional standards, but it's those 2 zero ones, right? It's the building setback and side yard. Those are the only 2 that have changed, correct?
Correct. As well as a 10-foot for the height overlay.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if they're taking advantage of the height, they're stepping the building back 10 feet. Sure.
We're talking about this separately.
It was a,
incorporated it.
It was not intended to be incorporated in there. It was a whole separate conversation. Smart Growth, about a year ago, gave us 4 subjects to revisit: parking, height, the build to, and the rec space.
So is this going somewhere else other than town center?
No, this is just dimensional requirement in town center. So this was
Is it
in,
coming out of the other ordinance? I'm confused.
No.
What's going on?
it
But let me
is,
try to explain. This was always a separate, order,
I
but
understand.
I incorporated other orders just to save time and money.
Okay, so it's coming out?
It's now a separate. order. Right.
It's coming out.
It's coming.
Right, correct,
Okay. And the one that I saw that had it in it won't have it in.
correct.
correct,
Got it.
correct. And this was entirely part of a pushback on those larger developments.
And
Yeah.
and just to clarify, you know, back in the day, with when we had the block class and everything, these were the dimensional requirements of the town center. And then when Rayot updated that, he added in the build to line and it just throughout the borough. And so then it got adopted. So we're just kind of going back in time a few years to what it had been.
And then in addition, with the height overlay, we're gonna step those buildings back 10 feet.
But I'm not losing my mind. If you would have just left it in the revised ordinance for town center, it all does the same thing.
Well, this one was voted for the month before we started this one. And he had just kept incorporated the same stuff in, so we were already processing this one through. That's why it was brought out separate.
Yeah.
Same difference.
It is, it's just to keep in the flow and to make sure we're doing things.
Same difference. So anyways, that motion's on the floor.
I seconded it.
Okay.
Very quietly.
Any other comments? CJ, anything? Daryl? Go ahead. Okay. Whitty? Aye. Steve?
Yes.
Aye.
Still no vote.
I can't.
Aye.
I'll vote.
I
I will vote.
If you want to be Alan, you can say
Come
that.
on, if
When
you're
we
Alan.
adjourn, I will vote.
Okay, so I'll put those 2 letters together for Borough Council then. There was one other one. We have that vacancy. I'm not sure if
I didn't get that guy to reach out to you. I will
if
do
we
that.
can.
When is Borough Council going to review these people?
We don't have anything set
Okay.
yet. So give me any nominations you want. They are reaching out to the people that are on the list.
Perfect. Yeah, I just hope his name gets thrown in.
I think notify anybody that might be interested in and let us know if they are. And then I'm assuming Dana's gonna advertise, do all this stuff that.
Yes, she'll do everything that's needed. I'll be the point of contact. Just send them to me.
Okay.
I'll have my email. I will forward them to Dana, make sure, and then she will take over and do everything that's needed. And I'll gladly give that up.
Will this be discussed at the next smart vote?
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, it will be discussed at the next March.
And will those revisions be made by then?
Yes.
Yes, I assume that there will be.
You say this, not this.
No.
Yeah.
The unified residential development will be
Without this in it.
correct. Thank you.
I knew what you meant, CJ, not.
This being the,
Hey, just to be clear, CJ, there's a vacancy on the planning commission if you're interested.
Me?
Yeah,
Can't get
I
it.
hear you. Okay. Next vacancy.
Uh,
Oh, Alex Katz. It's just too busy of a time right now.
you might not remember, me wasn't here too often, unfortunately.
Oh, no, Alan,
Alan's the vice president. The vice chair, not vice president.
we don't operate without Alan.
He has a life sentence. I think.
We won't let him leave.
I've got a young architect at John Milner's office who lives here in town that I'd love to apply. I think he could make it great.
Yeah, we have a couple good ones.
There, I'm gonna leave it alone.
All right, new business, no new business, no other business. So I'll move to agenda meeting.
Second.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
With the university, it's not. It's, or festival.